welcome to the Beer Guys radio show. Thanks for joining us this week. We're going to talk about what is going on in the world of craft beer. And there is always something going on, and we got to the bottom of it. I think we got to the bottom of most of it. There's always stuff going on. We can't find it all. But anyway, I am Brian Hewitt. Tim is on assignment again this week. It's a long assignment. He might be going in for extra credit. I don't know. I don't know all the details. And frankly, you know what? I'm too busy with the show. So with me is the one and only, thank goodness, Mo Mike Nate. How you doing, Mo Mike Nate?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to help you and running the show. And yeah, just excited to have another episode of the Beer Guys Radio.
Is it hot enough for you?
Oh, I think it's too hot for me, but we're surviving out there, melting a little bit. What about you, Brian, over there in your?
You know, I had the thermostat turned down a little too much. Maybe I might be a little on the cool side. I think I'll warm up with a few beers here, and I'll be fine. So it can be a little warmer, but I guess it's actually 94 outside right now as we're recording this. So it's been fun. I've been getting notifications about how warm it is from devices and people who have to actually go outside. I went down to the garage for, I don't know, about 5 minutes to grab something out of my car. And I'm like, oh, it is quite warm out here. Let me go back inside where it's much cooler. So that was my foray into it. I started to develop a bit of a headache as I did it. So I'm glad I got back in under 5 minutes. So
Awesome prayers, Brian. As somebody whose whole job is outside, most of my job is outside. So I got to enjoy swimming through the humidity this morning. I get to enjoy being baked by the sun. And then at some point, I just stopped caring about any of the effects. I was just like, all right, let's just get through this.
You have to. And part of it was partially me being a jerk asking you what you thought of the temperature, because I know you spend a fair amount of time out and it's pretty rough. So, Beer Snob Sean is drinking a can of Schnitzel Ale European. So cheers, Beer Snob Sean. Yeah. We talk on social media a lot. He likes my beers and I like his, and it's great. Good stuff. But what sounds really good when it's 94 degrees out? A cold beer called Snow.
It does sound really good.
And we've talked about it on the show a few times before, and I found out, and I don't know if this is probably not new news, but it's been kind of something I've been watching, because they were like one of the biggest beer brands in the world that nobody's heard about outside of China. And apparently they have broken into the U.S. They've made inroads. So there's an actual company presence here in the U.S., and they're trying to get a foothold here. But the problem is, because we'd never heard of them before, it's a bit of an uphill battle. But I found out that apparently it's available in Washington, California, and I want to say like New Jersey, like in a larger scale. But apparently Total Wine here in Georgia has it as well. And I'm interested in giving that a shot. Or are you going to run over? You're going to a Total Wine pretty soon, right, Mike Nate? As part of your job, you going to keep an eye out for snow beer?
Yeah, so I'll be delivering to 3 different Total Wines on Friday, so I'll keep an eye out for it. It's definitely something, especially since it's one of the most popular beers that we've never heard of. Of course, I want to try it.
So the one I found that was listed is something called Brave the World, which makes me wonder, because it's technically different than what I think the big one is, but it's by the same company. So I'm very curious about this. It's very popular, and I think part of it was it's a very inexpensive beer, but apparently it's good enough for people to really enjoy. So it has a lot to live up to. I'm really intrigued by this. I was kind of hoping to have a chance to run over and see about getting one before recording the show, but it's going to have to wait. Maybe next week. Maybe I'll find that before I find Bapple, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm still looking for Bapple, people, but everybody bought all that up. They lied to us about that being, they said in the official news release for that, it'll be around all summer. It's limited, but you'll see it. No, you won't. You won't see it at all. The crazy people that really love the stuff, that drive 60 miles to get a case of it or even a can, they bought it all up. It's gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because they only did a limited production run, so the Bush was assuming that there was going to be more supply available in the market, and they consistently keep this highly sought after product seasonal, an LTO, like a limited time offering item, and so I'm not looking for Bapple anymore. I salute you, sir. And if you do happen to find it, I would love to try it. But I'm going for greener pastures of this Brave the World beer.
I was going to say greener pastures. Maybe they released a lime version of
Yep.
Bush. Maybe you can go for that.
I saw Lapple's, or I saw Lime, I think is what it's called. I think they're calling it Lime, Bush Light Lime.
Lime. That's great. Yeah. One of my favorite things to do when I go into a package store, I know it's gone. And I know it's not going to be there. I'll ask somebody if they have it, and then I'll see how long they say, oh, yeah, that's been sold out for weeks. And then I'll talk about people really are crazy about that. And then we have a good laugh at how insane people are for that beer. So it's kind of my weird schadenfreude about it. Like I make fun of the people who really like it. It might be really good. I do remember when they replaced Bapple with something else, the next seasonal thing, and that was a complete dud for a lot of people. Yes, Bapple, McRib, and the Shamrock Shake. Yes, all of these live in some glorious cloud world somewhere that we'll never see. But people chase this stuff. I think it's a matter of like it's slightly interesting, and I don't know, life can be a little boring, so it's something to look for. But we should move on. No more Bapple, no more snow beer for now. We'll get into our actual beers of the week. Mo, Mike, Nate, what are you drinking?
So I have been plagued with a headache for most of the day, so I'm going to go lighter on my beers of the week. In my glass right now from Clark is their sparkling water tropical, which is made with Sabro hops. I just wanted something cold and a little refreshing. And then on the heels of that, from Kirkland Signature, we've got their Helles Lager, which is a beer brewed by Deschutes Brewing. And so this was something that we picked up a case of it. Party and I picked up a case of this recently, and we've had it. It's honestly really wonderful, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, that's what I've got next on deck. Brian, what do you have in your glass this week?
Yeah, that I'd heard people talking about that Deschutes Helles Lager that they have. I think it replaced something that Deschutes used to sell, and they no longer sell. They just rebranded it. I'm intrigued by that. I need to get some of that. I'm a fan of Deschutes, and I've had their King Crispy, and I think it was some crispy themed thing that it was before that they no longer sell. But I like that, and I will definitely keep an eye out for that the next time I'm at a Costco, Kirkland's Costco, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
I don't know. I try to avoid Costco. It's a little too crazy for me, but I'll get in there eventually. I started off with a Bitburger Premium Pilsner because I'm a big fan of those. I love those, and I just happened to be out looking for some interesting beers, looking for Bapple, and I found the true winner, which is Bitburger. So I grabbed a few more of those. Always love it. Always a fan. Great beer for the money, honestly. I am now getting into Breakside Brewery's Wanderlust IPA, which is an IPA with Mosaic, Summit, Simcoe, Cascade, and Amarillo. Breakside's wins a lot of medals for their beers. You know what? Actually, I think now I'm trying to think if I open that or if I open the AleSmith, which is what my second one's going to be. I think I'm drinking the Breakside one now. I'm not 100% sure about that. It's either that or AleSmith IPA, which is an IPA with huge amounts of Columbus and Citra hops, and I believe it has grapefruity notes. Thinking about what I'm drinking here, I'm guessing. I think it is the Wanderlust IPA I'm drinking because I'm not getting that giant blast of grapefruit from Columbus and Citra. But yeah, that is what I am working on, and I'm enjoying it. It's going to be a very IPA heavy day, hop heavy day, so very crisp and enjoyable.
Nice,
indeed. So I think it's time for us to get into some stories. Speaking of hops, we have a new hop variety that was released by the USDA ARS. And if you don't know what that is, I'll explain. So according to the Brewers Association, the United States Department of Agricultural Research Service, so all of that together is the USDA-ARS, they have announced the release of a new aroma hop variety called USDA ARS Vera. The new hop, which we'll just call Vera for short because it's a lot easier than the acronym, it's said to have tropical, stone fruit, and citrus characteristics, which are all things I like and I think we all like in hops. What made this hop release particularly noteworthy is that it's publicly developed. So the US government's involved. That means Vera has no intellectual property restrictions. It's accessible and available to anybody who wants to use them. And that's not the case, I guess, with a lot of hops out there. It's also high yielding and disease resistant, which is a good thing. And it was developed with direct brewer feedback at every stage. So this isn't just some farmer going out and doing his own thing and coming up with some ideas. They had brewers, checking this out, probably using versions of it and brewing with it and giving feedback on, hey, what do we think about this? So they've adapted this to be friendly to brewers specifically. Not that farmers wouldn't do that, but that was the whole point of it. It's cool. The Brewers Association directly contributed to the production of Vera. They've actually been supporting the USDA's public hop breeding program since 2017, and kudos to them for that, because we got this cool new hop as a result of it. The hop is named after Vera Catherine Charles, a mycologist who made significant contributions to the long-term sustainability of the hop industry. I think she was early 20th century was her era that she was doing her work. I believe she passed in the mid 50s. But in terms of the hop's genetic background, it's a female hop resulting from a 2011 cross between Brewer's Gold, a wild Manitoba hop, and a powdery mildew-resistant male hop of a wild American descent. So there are three hops involved in this, and two of them seem to be wild or kind of uncharted territory. So this is kind of exciting. If you'd like to get your hands on some Vera, you can buy it from the Hop Research Council via the Lupulin Exchange, and I guess that would be for professional brewers. I'm not sure how accessible or how available this will currently be for like the home brewer, but I assume that at some point we'll be seeing it. People will be buying enough of it, splitting it up, and making it available at home brewer sizes. It would be very cool to brew with. Additionally, the 2025 Great American Beer Festival will feature a special one-time category for beers featuring the Vera hops prominently, either an aroma or flavor or both. So this is very cool. Because they're involved in it, they're promoting it in a lot of different ways. So I'm really interested to see what people do with this. The flavor characteristics, the aroma notes do sound, familiar, to other hops that we've enjoyed in the past in other beers. So yeah, it'll be kind of cool to see what they wind up doing with this. Are you looking forward to? Have you heard of Vera before this?
So I have not heard of Vera. Based off of the aroma profile that is provided, I'm excited to brew with it for sure. It's interesting. Last week we talked about how Heineken and I believe Carlsberg were going
Carlsberg
to
and Heineken
file a patent on a strain of barley. And so it's interesting how now this week we are talking about a hop, specifically genetically modified hop, to be made public. I think it's really neat that, this hop is now just open to the public. It was put forth by the USDA instead of trying to lock it up underneath a couple of brew houses running it.
That is a good point. And actually apparently they filed the patent on it's a particular malt strain and some procedures around brewing with it. And they have the patents. People are going after them saying, hey, all you did was breed these two, strains of malt together, and you shouldn't be able to do that. Of course, this is happening over in Europe. So their laws are going to be a little different. But that is a really good point, because we did talk about a lot of proprietary hops, and here we go this week. We've got one that's completely non-proprietary, open, no IP restrictions. I think this is cool. I like this, and I would like for hops in general to be like this. And I can also see why farmers and people that would invest the time and the money into, finding a very specific hop variety, blending things together, breeding them to get to a certain point, would want to cash in on that. Like, we spent a lot of money on this. We want to make some money back off of it. So I get that too. I like that this is not an option,
But it wasn't private farmers that did that. It was the Department of Agricultural Research Service. So that's taxpayer funded research, taxpayer funded farmers, putting in the effort to create this. So it only makes sense that this would be a publicly offered hop with no restrictions.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's paid for by the taxpayers, at least to some extent. So everybody in the US should be available to them. And I don't even mind people other places. You're like, you want some,
Yeah.
you can get some. That's fine. We don't mind. Like everybody can have it. So I'm good with this. Like there's a lot of expenditures of tax funds that I'm less pleased with. I'm okay with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, so changing gears, we're going to move on into some interesting news, a different take on non-alcoholic beer. So, yeah, the media loves to, build things up, and when those things get too popular, they love to tear them down again, and that's really good for, eyeballs and clicks and that sort of thing. So this week on the tearing things down side, we have an article in the New York Post that calls into question if non-alcoholic beer is really any healthier for you. So it's clearly written to get some controversy clicks and outrage and that sort of thing, but it does also make a good point or two. So that's why we're talking about it today. It cites a small study of 44 young men where half of them drank 2 non-alcoholic beers a day for 4 weeks and the others drank water instead. At the end of 4 weeks, the men who drank non-alcoholic beer had significant spikes in their blood sugar and insulin, along with increases in harmful cholesterol and triglycerides. And triglycerides are the fats that are linked to heart disease. I should say I'm not a doctor. We're not doctors, and this isn't medical advice. Anytime we start talking about this stuff, I don't want anybody to be misled. Don't do anything the beer guys tell you to do in terms of health or talk about, that sort of thing. But anyway, so the men who fared the worst in this survey were the ones that were drinking zero proof wheat beers and fruity blends, whatever fruity blends are. So maybe like non-alcoholic fruited gozes or something like, or Berliners maybe. So kettle sours, I'm guessing. So researchers said this was probably the results are probably due to the calories and the sugar content of these drinks. So clearly there are some problems with this study. Obviously, the real metric that needs to be measured here is the difference between various health factors between non-alcoholic beer and regular beer, not non-alcoholic beer and water. This is kind of a bit of a trick that they played on us. Also, there's the issue of it being a very small sample size over a short period of time and being only young men who are measured. What about women? What about older men like myself? We have different responses to these things, and that's kind of important. So you can't wipe away an entire category of beer based upon a small, percentage of very young men, very small category, very small testing set. So on the other hand, there is a good point here, honestly. Just because it's non-alcoholic doesn't mean it's automatically a healthy beverage. I think we probably realize that, but we don't really think about it, especially when you compare it to water. So in the place of no and low alcohol levels, non-alcoholic beers often have carbohydrate levels that are higher, mostly in the form of added sugars. For example, Coors Light, which has 5.8 grams of carbs and 0.3 grams of sugar per 12-ounce serving. That's basically a diet beer, honestly. If you compare it to Coors Edge, which is its non-alcoholic counterpart, it has 8 grams of carbs, so more carbs, and 4 grams of sugar, which is almost 4 times the amount of sugar. So if you had 2 of each, the comparison is like you getting 8 times more sugar drinking the non-alcoholic beer. But non-alcoholic Guinness, on the other hand, is one of the better ones in terms of carbs and calories. It has the same number of carbs as regular Guinness, but fewer calories. So you've got 71 in your non-alcoholic and 125 in your alcoholic. Both of them are pretty low, and no added sugar as far as I can tell, at least in the non-alcoholic one. And I don't think they add any sugar to just regular Guinness. So your mileage is going to vary here, but this is something you should keep in mind when you're deciding, I'm going to swap out my alcohol with something non-alcoholic. What are you swapping it out with? Because that's important. Like swapping out your Guinness with, I don't know, Mountain Dew is probably not a good health decision. Probably not. Again, I'm not a doctor, but just saying, you have to think about what you're drinking too. So non-alcoholic pastry stouts are still pastry stouts, just minus the alcohol. So yeah.
Minus the alcohol and probably extra sugar.
Yeah.
I never drank a non-alcoholic beer thinking that it was a healthy alternative. The only healthy alternative, the only part of my body that was thanking me for drinking non-alcoholic was my liver. I never picked up a can of an NA Pilsner or NA IPA and thought to myself, this is a healthier alternative. You're still drinking calories.
True. Yeah. That's a good point. I'm like, if you compare this to water, I'm like there is
Obviously.
yeah, there's basically grain sugars that are partially fermented out, and but they're still present. There's still stuff going on there. So yeah, this article is definitely this is meant to get outrage and clicks, and I really don't like that they do that, but I do see the point in it because I never really think about it too much. I'm like, it. I think if you're swapping out if you're going to have a non-alcoholic pastry style like there we've had a few was it Brava's peanut butter dark. If you have that instead of I don't know Black Tuesday, you're making a better choice because like there's fewer calories and there's no alcohol probably but if you're swapping out like a light lager with that, then you've got a different situation there. So it's just something. It's a take on it I hadn't considered before, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, I do think that if you're making the choice to lighten your load in terms of alcohol and using non-alcoholic beers to do it, I don't think you need to worry about this. I think this is just kind of nonsense, honestly. So
yeah, it definitely the way they conducted the study definitely makes me think that this is more for engagement and clickbait than actually being sincere and trying to figure out the roots, what's going on there.
Yeah, the thing that worries me about this is people will cite this in the future and say, "Hey, look, non-alcoholic stuff isn't good for you." Like we've already seen a study, and that's where these things get kind of nasty. Is they get quoted and quoted and quoted, and nobody knows what the source material is, and you lose all the details about. Hey, it's a very small sample size. It's not randomly done. There's not really good control group. There's not like a lot of things that could have been done there. There's nobody but men involved in it. So anyway. Speaking of alcohol, non-alcohol, and what you should and shouldn't drink, got some interesting information that's going to be coming out from the U.S. government about what they think you should be drinking. So, and this one's kind of surprising. The U.S. government is expected, according to what I've read in the drinks business, turns out, to remove the recommended daily alcohol consumption limits from their next edition of the dietary guidelines for Americans. The current version recommends, and you've heard this before probably, no more than one drink a day for women and no more than 2 drinks a day for men. And the rumor is that in the place of this will be a brief general statement encouraging moderation and or just limiting alcohol due to associated health risks. It's thought that the lobbying done by large alcohol companies made a big difference in the outcomes of these guidelines, and I can believe that for sure. But there's another factor involved. The studies they reviewed for the update had mixed findings. So they looked at one study, and it linked moderate drinking to a higher risk of some cancers, but a lower overall risk of mortality and cardiovascular issues. Another study they looked at said, and I think they just looked at these 2 studies, that alcohol-related mortality risk, including increased risk of 7 cancers, begins at low consumption levels and just increases with intake. And they had no positive things to say about alcohol. So they have one that says you're better if you drink moderately. The other one says it doesn't matter what you drink. The more you have of it, the worse it's going to get for you. So, yeah, that's what they had to work with. The U.S. guidelines have given some kind of a recommendation as to precise specific daily limits since 1990. So I guess this has only been around the actual recommendations for 35 years. I just kind of assume this has always been a thing, but yeah, 1990. That's all the longer they've been. And I'm really surprised given that given what we've heard that they didn't go the opposite direction and get a lot more stringent. So anyway, we will find out for sure what's actually in the recommendations soon. The new dietary guidelines for Americans should be coming out in the coming weeks, possibly even by the time the show drops. I don't think we have a specific time on that, but I think it's probably going to be sometime next month at this point. So I'm guessing sometime in July, theoretically. So as a result of this, Mo Mike Nate, are you going to go out and start drinking a lot more alcohol?
I'm not. I will probably stay the course or even possibly decrease a little bit. I've never paid attention to those guidelines because that they are a suggestion of how you're supposed to live your life or how other people think you're supposed to live your life. And I I'm not getting any younger, and so going out and drinking more is just not nearly as appealing to me as it was a decade ago.
Yeah, I get that. My big thing with that is, I mean, they did give you recommendations based upon men, based upon women. They didn't really give you recommendations based upon like a lot of other factors in your life. Are you a
Mm-hmm.
very large person? You're very tall. You're very, I don't know, very muscular. You're very old. You're very
Are you
young.
active? Are you
Like,
sedentary?
yeah, I'm like, do you go out? Are you going out and having your beers while you're dancing all night? Or are you having your beers while you're sitting in a recliner watching old reruns of Cheers? I'm like, these probably have a different impact on your body. So, uh, yeah, two beers a day works for me. Yeah, that works for a lot of people, honestly. So, I'm a little surprised that they just removing it entirely, but it in a way it's a bit smart because it makes this less of a charged issue, so they don't have to deal with the drama of people fighting over it. Just saying moderation is in
Mm-hmm.
some ways good, but I know that there are going to be some people that say, hey, if you don't tell people, give people some kind of an idea of what the limits should be, they're just going to say, well, I don't know, Jim Bob says it's 5 is a moderate drinking for a night, so I'm just going to go with that. So I can kind of see both sides with this. um I'm just glad it didn't go to some extreme. I guess that they have dialed down the numbers up in Canada. So what used to be recommended is for them, I think was close to what we had, and I think they've dialed it back to like half the amount. I should have looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall. It was mentioned in one of the articles where they have gotten more strict, and whereas we were starting to go that way, we've wound up not doing that at all. So we've kind of punted on is what we've done. It's like, we can't decide. We'll let you decide. We'll give you just words, that
Well, and I
these
remember
sort of things.
when we talked about the tightening of the guidelines and it going down to 1 beer for women, 2 for men, and we were kind of just a little surprised at how strict it had become. And so now that the pendulum is swinging in the other direction, and I kind of like it. It's another way that we're not being told what to do by someone else. I mean, if you're really concerned about it, go talk to your general physician
Sure.
and
Yeah.
get his or her opinion on how much alcohol you should consume.
Yeah. Have I said recently that we're not doctors and this isn't medical advice? Just gonna
Correct.
throw that
Yeah.
out there again.
Go talk to
Yeah,
them. Don't talk to us about it.
that is a good point. And the other thing that's an interesting factor in this, and I think part of the reason a lot of the companies care about it, insurance related. I think the insurance had
Mm-hmm.
that built into their what they decide how they're going to charge people. That was built. Those recommendations were built into how they would ask you those questions. Do you exceed the recommended daily? If you did, they're going to up your rates. I think that the insurance companies who ask that are probably going to stick to the exact same formula they had before and not change it because they've got no numbers to work with, and so they're going to work with the numbers they had, which I guess worked well enough for them in the past. So, but that's the big tie-in. If they made it stricter, it would have made insurance go up for a lot of people, and it would have been a big disincentive to drink the way you had been drinking. Whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that would hurt the bottom line of very large beer companies, which explains why that happened. So,
All right.
I think it might be time for me to give a shout out to our lovely sponsor, Truck and Tap. So, as you heard us talking about it a little bit earlier in the show, summer is finally here in Atlanta. We've hit the 90s, and my Amazon device is breathlessly warning me about heat advisories every 5 minutes. If it's going to be hot for 10 minutes longer than previously expected, I'm going to get a new notification about that. Yeah, I'm going to be notified that it's going to be warm a little longer. I have never been more informed about the weather, but summer also means tiki drinks and tiki-inspired beers at Truck and Tap. In July, they're throwing a luau party at each location, and you're invited to visit sporting your finest Hawaiian shirt. And in the spirit of tropical summer escapism, my beer picks for this week will be the ones that would be perfect for a luau. So at Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Pontoon's Rainbow Smiggles. Yeah, this is the kettle sour. They got Pontoon National Press a few years ago. Also, it's Pontoon. If you buy it from them during July or June, it's get a little charity kick in there. But anyway, it's made with Skittles, Trix cereal, strawberry, pineapple, and vanilla. And that sounds crazy, but and I haven't had it since the first or the second release. But as I recall, it actually came together really well. It was a pretty well done beer. It did seem insane, but they kind of knocked it out of the park with that. At the Duluth location, I'm getting Reformation's Tangelic Radler. This particular Radler happens to be a sparkling tangerine soda blended with Reformation's A Cold One Pilsner. I usually think of Radlers being a mix of like lemonade and orange juice with beer, but I kind of like the sound of this combination. You know, the tangerine soda with some Pilsner. I think that would be really good. I haven't had it yet. I think I will soon. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Perennial's The Nice Slice. It's a dry hop Berliner said to be tart, hoppy, and citrusy, but still approachable. So it's not going to give you the ick when you approach it. Sounds like summertime in a glass to me. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Athena Paradiso Watermelon Salt from Creature Comforts. As the name implies, it's a fruited Berliner made with both watermelon and salt. And those things go well together and drink well together. So there you have my list of refreshing summer getaway beers. If you'd like to swing by Truck and Tap for one of the luau's, and you know you would, head over to truckandtap.com and find out what day the location nearest you they're going to have the party. They're not all happening on the same day, so you might be able to drop by several different luau's. That's truckandtap.com for all the details, and thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap.
Yeah, we love you guys. All right, so where are we at? We got to get back into it here. You know, let's get back into it with some drama, some like lawsuits.
Drama.
Yeah. So this is interesting. It popped up and I couldn't ignore it because the companies involved they have a pretty big stake in beer. Now, this isn't necessarily directly related to beer. So the three major beverage companies, Constellation Brands, Brown-Forman, and Diageo are all getting sued right now. Not for beer reasons, like I said, but the lawsuit against Constellation Brands, I want to say Browns because Brown-Forman. Constellation Brands alleges the company misrepresented the sales of their wine and spirits division in April of 2024 through January 2025. They're also accused of inflating their performance ahead of a planned sale of some underperforming wine brands, which sounds a little sneaky. Their Corona and Modelo brands, which we know them for, do not appear to be involved in any way in the lawsuit. And I think that those are doing really well, actually. So I'm taking this as good news for beer. They're not being sued about beer. This is not bad news about beer. You know, I don't know if that's Schadenfreude or not, but whatever. Diageo is getting sued over allegedly misleading consumers on tequila ingredients. Basically, the allegation is products with labels saying they contain 100% agave actually contain significant amounts of ingredients from plants other than agave, like sugarcane and corn. And part of the reason I pulled this one in is because did we talk about either on the show or maybe like in a bottle share or something like that? The 100% agave thing, where that's kind of a misnomer and it's a bit of a fraud, because I feel like we did.
So it's not necessarily that it's a blanket fraud, but it's like tequila must be made from Blue Weber agave, and there are allowances for a little bit of additives. One of the common ones is actually vanilla, but a lot of tequila producers actually pride themselves as being additive free. So it's kind of like beer in the sense of being adjunct free. Some people are purists and think that makes it a superior product to a beer brewed with any form of adjunct. And so the fact that it's a significant addition of additives is a little concerning and definitely frustrating, and there's reason for them to be sued over it.
Yeah, when you start talking about like sugarcane and corn, I'm like, well, I know what you're talking about with the vanilla, and I have definitely had some tequila that had vanilla character to it, which I liked. I thought it was natural. Now I'm not actually sure that it was. I don't know the brand. I'm not alleging anything against Diageo, but because we know Diageo is the owner of Guinness, Harp, Smithwick's, and some other beers, and I like my Guinness, so I'm not gonna speak ill of Diageo, even if they're doing possibly doing some shady stuff with the tequila, but they should probably stop doing that. Maybe, update their labels. So that would be a good thing. And finally, the Brown Foreman, who we know from, I know, like if you're a big fan of, bourbons like myself, whiskeys and other things, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, and Jack Daniels, they're getting sued for not letting their investors know soon enough about some financial difficulties they're running into. Apparently, investors were caught by surprise when their stocks got hit really hard when they're reporting earnings. So they get just nailed. So they're going after them for saying, hey, you should have told us sooner that this was coming and we could have made adjustments for it. So don't do that. So I think the interesting thing here is it in addition to it just being interesting drama, is that it's showing that, man, they're having a rough go of it with the wine industry and the spirits industry. I've heard a little bit about this, but I've been so focused on beer. Like these numbers are down, Brown Foreman being down with, owning and selling Woodford Reserve and Old Forester and Jack Daniels. I'm like, those things should be printing money. So that's a very interesting sign of the times. I guess when people are getting healthier and drinking less alcohol, all of everything is getting affected by that, not just beer. So yeah, very interesting thing.
Beer's just the easier one to cut out because, going back to talking about NA beers and being allegedly healthier, beer as a product is not very healthy and good tasting beer. Well, subjective, but a lot of the lighter or the ultra brands will say that, hey, it's your beer flavored beer, but in a lower calorie, lower carb package. But then you can just flip over to a spirit and have, either a mixed drink like spirit and tonic or spirit and seltzer or whatever. And you can still have a good tasting beverage with fewer calories than a beer. So it stinks to hear that this is impacting the industry world universally, but it makes sense that beer's being hit a little bit heavier than the other two.
I see what you're saying. It did sound like you were attacking beer personally. Like I felt personally.
Sorry about that.
No, I mean I get it. I know if you've ever done any of the low carb diets or whatever. Like hey, you gotta avoid beer, but you can get the brown liquors and vodka and all that other stuff because there's no added sugar in it. Like and some of it, it has there's a sweetness, a natural sweetness in it that's imparted from the various things it's aged in and the things that were involved in it before it was distilled. So yeah, I can see that. I don't like thinking about that. And honestly, beer is not a diet drink. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that and move on to something that's probably also, it wouldn't really be a diet drink, but it might lead to like some lighter beers. And that's it's rice. Talk about a little bit of rice here. So have you been seeing more rice beers lately? So you might have, because according to a new report by DataBridge Market Research, the global rice beer sector, I didn't even know there was a sector for a global rice beer, but it's expected to grow in value by 4.4%, reaching $5.51 billion by 2031. That would be up from $3.91 billion in 2024. I don't know if that the numbers work out because I had to Google that separately to see where we're at, but it seems like a very large growth coming in the next 6 years for rice beers. So the study attributes the growth to factors including changes in consumer preferences towards premium and exotic beverages, and I guess the import categories where rice is a heavy factor in the beer does appeal to some people as being premium / exotic. The growing trend of experimenting with unique flavors and ingredients. Consumers increasingly prioritizing health and wellness. And this is interesting because apparently rice is seen as being more natural and less processed than some other grains and some other things. I'm not sure how true that is, but the green, what do they call it? The green halo effect or the health halo. So there's something where the proximity or the thoughts around something, the associations with the thing make it seem healthier than it actually is. Not sure if that's actually true, but again, I not a doctor and not a biologist or anything like that. So growing interest in gluten-free alternatives is another pushing point on this. And I can see that. That makes sense here. And they also credits for the growth increasing disposable incomes. I'm not so sure about that one, but there may be in parts of the world where rice beers are just hitting and people have more money. This may be a real thing. So I'm just thinking about the U.S. at this point, honestly. The other factor that may contribute to the growing adoption of rice use in beer is the advancements that have been made in terms of both the number of rice varieties that can be used and the growing knowledge about rice being malted. One of the articles I read about this claimed that a lot of brewers don't know that rice can be malted. I'm not sure how true that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are people that don't know that would probably look into it more if they knew that. But I don't know. Apparently, there are some rice varieties with enough diastatic power to convert the rice's starch into sugar without adding enzymes, which is kind of a big deal because adding enzymes is kind of key for making most gluten-free beers, just because they don't have the activity it needs to convert those sugars. You need what's in the barley, and unfortunately, what's in the barley also comes with gluten. Anyway, so rice has the potential to be more than just a cheap adjunct addition in beer, from what I'm reading. My question for you, and I think that I have, but have you had any rice beers lately, Mo Mike Nates?
Lately, no. So I don't enjoy rice-based beverages. So soju, sake, and then rice lagers. I've had them in the past, and they, as a category or well executed, it's just not for me.
I want to say that I've had. So we've got a like brewery restaurant brew pub type of thing not far from me called Hopsticks that does a lot of interesting Asian fusion fare, like a Japanese and Robata, I believe. And they have a rice lager, jasmine rice lager. It's really nice. I've had that recently, and I'm into that. I like drinking that when I'm there. I want to say Creature Comforts had a rice beer that I've had recently. And then I feel like I've been seeing that more often, and I don't seek it. I'm not looking for it, but I could kind of buy into the idea that people are experimenting with that, and this might be an up and coming hot thing that people want to get into, because it's kind of an interesting natural progression. We've got a lot of interest in a variety of interesting lagers. That's a rice lager is another really interesting lager. Like lately, I think I just added it as a style, like the Czech dark lager or something like that. We had it as a story a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember the specifics of it, but that's been a hot one where everywhere I went, there was a Czech dark lager, like out of the blue. Like suddenly everybody's making them. I haven't seen that with the rice yet, but I'm wondering if that's coming. And
I definitely noticed that it's ramping up a little bit. There's a local brewery here in town called Three Taverns. We mentioned them a lot on the show, and they a while ago were an early adopter of it, and they had their 4 year-round offerings. I think it's called Ukio or Yukio.
Yukio, you're right. Yes,
so
I've had that recently too.
Ones that I remember seeing on the market, but I'm definitely seeing more and more rice lagers offered commercially, not just from local producers here in Georgia, but also from other breweries that get distribution here in Georgia. So I definitely see it becoming more popular. But yeah, like you said, have I had one recently? No, it's just not for me.
Okay. No, I get that. And you're also not really much of a wheat beer fan either. So those other interesting grains you're just not having. You like Fonio though, right? Fonio was okay?
Yeah, Fonio was fine.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it's I was trying to think I had something and now I lost it. It's gone. All right. Never mind. You know what? I guess we need to move on. You did say soju, right? And I think this kind of figured in a little bit with the next story. But anyway, I'll get into it. I love tips on pairing beer with food, especially when the tips are something I hadn't heard about before, hadn't really thought about. This week, VinePair has given us some things to consider when it comes to the spice level in your food and how it will interact with your drink. And this applies to beer and everything else too. The general guidance for pairing your beverage with spicy food is, my beer is particularly gassy today. I'm just going to say that. I've had some interruptions because all of those bubbles, Anyway, let me get back to it. The general guidance for pairing your beverage with spicy food is to remember that alcohol increases the perception of heat. The higher the alcohol by volume, the spicier the food will taste. And that's because capsaicin, which is the compound that makes chilies hot, is fat, oil, and alcohol soluble. So that last part's really important. When it's dissolved in alcohol, capsaicin activates the same nerve receptors in your brain that alcohol does, which amplifies that burning sensation you feel. Alcohol acts as a flavor binder and carrier, causing the spicy flavor to linger longer on your palate. So once you get it in there, it just kind of soaks in and it becomes kind of a spiced napalm in your mouth, so to speak. So that said, it's less of a factor for most beers because alcohol's impact in terms of amplifying the heat is most notable starting around 13% ABV, but you're going to feel the burn with some higher ABV beers like an Imperial or Double IPA, especially if they're on the drier side. And that would be a good choice if you're looking to turn up the heat on something you're eating that's got some spice to it, but you're like, this could use a little kick up. So maybe get a good dry IPA that's a little higher ABV and see if that helps you out a bit. You might think that a big boozy Imperial Stout at 14%, that's above that 13% threshold where they start measuring it, would actually turn up the heat as well. But the residual sugars in those beers may actually reduce your perception of heat in much the same way that they talk about like a lower ABV wine with a lot of residual sugars, like I think a white wine. That'll also kind of mute some of that heat. So if you're looking for a beer that will, help keep things cool when it's, too spicy, you're going to want to have something light, light lager, some low ABV beer, something like that. But if, and you should, if it's really hot and you're trying to get through it, put them on ice until the Rockies turn blue, so to speak. The temperature of an ice cold beer will also help turn down the thermostat as well. So, get a light beer, get it really cold, and that's going to help you out with that heat. So if you're in hot ones and they ask you, and you're lactose intolerant like me, and they ask you what you want, tell them I want a really, really ice cold, I don't know, Coors Light or something like that. Something that's just absolutely frostbitten. And that might actually help you get through it. I don't know if I'd guarantee it, but it might. So I like this idea. I like the idea of using, the soju tie-in. Yes. And part of it, that was something that people drink with Szechuan specifically because soju amplifies the perception of the Szechuan spice, and they like that. So I want to pay that off. That was a cool thing that I saw. I'm like, I'm going to have to give that a shot. I love Szechuan Chinese food, the little bit I've had of it, and I've had soju before, and I'm okay with that. I would like to try to put the two together because I wouldn't mind my Szechuan being more Szechuan-y, if that is understandable at all. But what do you think about this, Mo Mike Nate? Are you gonna start pairing some hot stuff with your beers and your whiskey?
I mean, to be honest with you, not with my whiskey, with alcohol at 13% kicking it off, and whiskey is much higher than that. No, I generally don't partake in the spicy stuff due to heartburn, but maybe with a cold, lower ABV beer, or even a boozy stout, it can actually be a little bit tolerable for me.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the heartburn. And if it was a really gassy beer plus the heartburn, that could be rough, couldn't it? I did not consider that. And I think that I want to say that the carbonation in the beer would only help accentuate the heat too. So if you went with something lower ABV and cask like in terms of carbonation, maybe that would help you mitigate some of that heat. Yeah, I don't know how that works out. They didn't talk about that, but it'd be worth trying out.
But yeah, I'm guessing you would get after it, and I know Party Nate definitely enjoys his hot sauces, so this would be something that maybe we could have you over and just experiment a little bit.
I would definitely try. I think it was soju. I would definitely try that in Szechuan at some point in time. I'm going to have to, the next time I go to a place that serves that, I'm going to see what I think about the two. I might have to get that. And I want to say that the article said that one of the main reasons to consume that in the area of China that they do is because it works so well with the food. But I have for a long time enjoyed, various hot buffalo wings and IPAs. Mm-hmm. And it definitely does in some cases. Sometimes it makes them hotter and sometimes it doesn't seem to. I hadn't really thought about it. I think that boils down a lot to how much residual sugar is in the beer. Like if it's a super dry beer, I think you're going to get more of that bang. It's more of that emphasis. I think if it's lower ABV and and it's just has a lot more. It's just not as dry as residual sugars. I think it's going to cut it back a little bit. So it's a lot to think about there. Like with the hazy stuff, I'm not sure what that effect would be. There's a whole field of research we could do on this, but I guess that'll probably have to be for another show because we're running short on time. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we call it a show?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So, well, that about wraps it up for our show this week. Thank you again for hanging out with us. We hope you had a good time. We sure did. And if you had a good time, we hope you'll tell some people about it and tell them to come over and hang out and watch, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. That helps us out. We do like subscriptions. We do care about those. And if you really, really enjoy what we're doing here, we would appreciate your support on Patreon. Just head over to patreon.com/beerguys. There are all kinds of cool perks, and including access to our Discord server where we talk about beer and other things all week long. And after that, we go to we do an after party after the show. So after we do this, we have the Patreon folks on. We put a message over in the Patreon Discord and say, hey, come on over and have some beers. We'll talk about some stuff and talk about the stories that we talked about in the show or whatever else is going on. But with that said, we hope you have a great week. And don't forget to drink local. Cheers.